let's learn some impressive vocabulary that I think you should know. Now, these are more advanced nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, but I think they are useful. They're going to allow you to be a little more descriptive and precise when you're having a conversation. And if you would like to get these lesson notes right here next to me, check out the link down below in the description. Join my community. If you're already a part of it, then I have sent them to you already. So check out that link down below. So let's begin with some verbs. I want to go ahead and jump into it. As many of you know, this is a quiz lesson. I want you to participate. Write your answers in the comments, in the chat. And again, we're talking about verbs right now. The manager, that mistakes were made during the project. I'm giving you the meaning of the verb down below. To admit or agree that something is true after first denying or resisting it. Now, to make it a little easier, I'm giving you a hint. I'm giving you the first letter of the verb. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little maybe hard to distinguish, but the first letter is C. The manager, starts with the letter C, that mistakes were made during the project. So we are admitting or agreeing, which again, confess, I think that would work, but the next part of that is what really would determine this word. You deny it at first. You resist it. You deny it at first, and then you admit it. So confess would work, but when you confess something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've denied it. And that is the key part. That is the key when it comes to this word, this verb. So again, that's why I mean this is a little bit more precise when you want to talk, and I think we can all relate to this. Somebody denied it. No, this is not the case. And then like, okay, yes, this is what happened. Their mistakes were made during the project. So the verb that I'm talking about, and I do think that once you see it, you'll be, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with it. We're talking about to concede something. The manager conceded that mistakes were made during the project. So when you concede something, you're admitting that something is true, but it really says that at first you didn't want to admit it. You tried to deny it, or you were resisting, and okay, I concede that mistakes were made during the project. And this is a great example of the passive voice when you don't want to say, well, who made the mistakes? What was the problem? That you use the passive, mistakes were made. This is something that you will hear politicians use all the time because they don't want to say that they made the mistake. They'll use the passive voice and just say, look, mistakes were made. So to concede, just keep that in mind. You're admitting it's true, but at first you resist it. Now, I'm not actually denying it at first, but if I wanted to use it like saying, I will concede, I don't know if you can tell from my voice, I am a little under the weather, so I apologize if I start coughing here and there or have to blow my nose, but I'm going to power through this lesson. So the next one, taking breaks throughout the day can help stress. Starts with the letter M. And the meaning of this verb is to make something bad less severe, serious, or painful. This is a collocation when talking about like stress. You're trying to stress. Begins with the letter M, and you're just making it less severe, less serious, or less painful. And excellent, well played. Takayo, Manuel, Julia, we're talking about the verb mitigate. To mitigate something, you're making something that is bad, it's not good, but you're making it less severe. And this is something that I think you want to do if you are enduring something that is painful and, it's not going to go away, but you want to mitigate the pain, or in this case, mitigate the stress. So I mentioned that this is a collocation. When talking about stress, to mitigate stress, let's go ahead and look at some other collocations with this verb. And this is an excellent way to build your vocabulary and really develop a more natural way of speaking and communicating, because this is what people like natives often use when they speak English. You mitigate stress, or people might try to mitigate damage. Mitigate a threat, mitigate the impact, mitigate the consequences, or mitigate a loss. Now, there are other collocations that you could use with this verb. I just wanted to give you just some that you may often hear when talking about the verb to mitigate something. All right, good verb to know. What do you think? The evidence was so strong that it the jury to reach a quick verdict. The verb begins with the letter C, as you can see, and the meaning of this verb is to force or strongly persuade someone to do something. And in this case, I think it's more strongly persuading the jury to reach a quick verdict. So there's some evidence, and it was so strong that it the jury to reach a quick verdict. So, of course, see words like convinced, convince and persuade. Those are kind of synonyms. This is not the word, that's not the verb that I'm looking for, even though you could use convince in this context. It convinced the jury to reach a quick verdict. If I want to add emphasis to that, so instead of saying I was convinced to do something, I was what? What's going to add more emphasis to the verb convince? Now, convince is a great verb. I love the verb convince. I use it all the time. It's a common verb. This one is a little more advanced. And again, it just lets you add emphasis. And in that way, when you're able to do that, you're going to get your point across in a clearer way. Well done, Lolly. I figured if I rambled enough, somebody would get it. Great job, Lolly. To compel someone. So it really has a similar meaning to convince. We're just adding emphasis that you're just strongly persuading someone to do something. In this case, the jury, the evidence was so strong, it compelled the jury to reach a quick verdict. And they were compelled to do something. I just like saying that word, compel. All right. I hope that you feel compelled to hit the like button and subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm sorry. My name's Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. And when we do lessons like this, it's all about helping you build your vocabulary so that you have a better, comprehension, listening, reading, but also, better, you can communicate a little more effectively when speaking or writing, using verbs like compel. What do you think about this next one? Another impressive verb. Please, from using your phone during the presentation. This just means to stop oneself from doing something. Begins with the letter R. I think that many of you are probably familiar with this verb because often you're going to follow it with from. You will from doing something. So think about, put yourself in this situation. And it's like somebody is making this announcement right here. And somebody says, look, everybody, please, from using your cell phone during the presentation. So the verb that we're talking about is the verb to refrain. Please refrain from using your cell phone during the presentation. You're stopping oneself from doing something. You're going to hear people use this verb when making some announcements, and they tell everybody, please refrain from taking pictures during the show. Please refrain from using your cell phone during the presentation. Please refrain from doing whatever it is. And they want people to stop themselves from doing it, and they will refrain from doing something. I thought, okay, this is... It's maybe a little distasteful joke. I thought it was funny, but again, using refrain. This was a sign at the bowling alley, I guess a long time ago. I don't know. I'm assuming it's a fake sign. They're just trying to be funny. It says, due to the coronavirus, please refrain from touching other people's balls. Please remember to wash your hands after touching your own balls. Thank you. And I imagine at a bowling alley, this is a play on words. It's a joke. But I wanted to share it with you because it's using our verb to refrain. Please refrain from touching other people's bowling balls and wash your hands after touching your own bowling balls. All right, very important during the COVID period. So let's now switch gears. We just talked about some impressive verbs. Let's look at some impressive nouns that at least I think they're impressive. During the meeting, she had an about how to solve the company's communication problem. So this is a noun. It's a long meaning down here. A moment when you suddenly feel that you understand or suddenly become conscious of something that is very important to you. It should say to you, not doing something. That's a little typo. I think I forgot to delete part of this. So it should just say something that is important to you and forget about the rest. So you would often use this with the verb have, and you are going to have an. It begins with the letter E, and this is a word that maybe you don't use it all the time. I imagine that if you watch a lot of movies, TV shows, you listen to podcasts, this is a word that you have heard. And somebody has this brilliant idea all of a sudden, and they say, oh, I had an. Not eureka. Eureka is more talking about like a sudden discovery. And really, you would use eureka as a standalone statement and say, wow, eureka. And in this case, we're talking about a specific noun. And I told you that you're often going to use it with have. To have an what? I'll be honest. I'm a little surprised. Nobody's gotten it just yet. Because I do think once I show you, this is probably a word, maybe like, oh yes, I've heard of this word. We're talking about an epiphany. So if you have an epiphany, that is a common collocation. It refers to this moment when you have this sudden idea. And it's like, wow, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is a great idea. I just had an epiphany. And keep that in mind. You're often going to use it with the verb have, to have an epiphany. And I don't know. You can let me know in the comments, in the chats, if this is a new word. That's great. But I do think it is one that you may come across, from time to time. You're listening to the news or podcast, TV show, and somebody has an epiphany. This is a word that I use quite often. If you watch these lessons, there's a between being confident and being arrogant that many people overlook. Based on the sentence, I don't know if I'm giving you much help in trying to determine what this noun is, but the meaning is a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. So we're talking about some subtle difference when it comes to meaning, expression, or sound. Excuse me. That begins with the letter N, and as many of you are pointing out, yes, Rodrigo, Takayo, great job. We're talking about a nuance. And I said I use it quite often in these videos because when talking about language, there's certainly nuances between different words. So in this case, we're talking about the nuance between being confident and arrogant, because they do have a similar meaning, but confident has a positive connotation. It's a good thing if you are confident in your abilities. If you're arrogant, you're basically confident in a way that annoys other people, and it really bothers them because you think you're superior in a way, and that is when you would describe someone as arrogant. So that is a nuance between the two, and if you want to meet in the middle between confident and arrogant, I would like to use the word cocky and say it's a more informal adjective, and saying somebody is cocky, it is more confident in a kind of arrogant way, but you could use it more playfully. You could use it more negative, say somebody's being cocky, or you could use it more like friendly, like, oh, I'm going to win, I'm the best. And don't be so cocky, all right? Don't be cocky. So that I think is a good in-between when talking about confident and arrogant. I wanted to throw that other word at you, but nuance is a great word to know. Here are some common collocations, and if talking about a slight nuance, I think when I use this word, This is the collocation that I tend to use in saying, look, there's a slight subtle difference. There's a slight nuance or a subtle nuance. You could say something is full of nuance, or maybe it lacks nuance. Any of those are collocations that you may hear with the noun nuance. The company's decision to cut cost had serious for its employees. Now, I would say there are two words that I feel, would fit this sentence. Both of them have a very similar meaning, at least in my opinion. There is a slight nuance between the two words that I'm thinking of, and I will tell you both of them, but it refers to an unintended consequence of an event or action, especially an unwelcome one. So in this case, the company decides to cut cost, you have to do it, and it happens, but it may have some serious for the employees. Maybe it's going to lower employee morale. People are going to have to, be let go. They're going to cut back on benefits. Who knows? And all of these things is going to have a what? I see both words. All right, great job. So the word that I'm highlighting right now, or that I want to talk about, is the word a repercussion. So a repercussion is an unintended consequence of an event or action, especially an unwelcome one. And that, I think, is the key thing. When you're definitely referring to something that is not good, then yes, it is a repercussion. The company's decision to cut costs had serious repercussions for its employees. Now, ramification is a word that has a similar meaning. And I would say, in my opinion, I probably would use them interchangeably. I think if you said ramification, that would also fit. The company's decision to cut costs had serious ramifications for its employees. But to have a little fun, I like to make sure I'm staying in the game, up to date with new technology, and I'll use AI whenever I can. And, I wanted to highlight, if I just put it in there, what it says as far as the subtle nuance between ramification and repercussion. Now, I think, again, I feel like they're really interchangeable. It seems like, according to this AI overview, that a ramification is complex. It is also an unintended consequence, and it's saying it can be positive or negative. In my view, I think even when people use the word ramification, probably they're referring to something that's negative, whereas repercussion is always a negative one. So again, I really think that these two words are interchangeable, which is why I said either one would work in this case. But I wanted to point out that slight nuance according to this AI overview. But take everything, look, when it comes to all of this, take everything with a grain of salt. What do you think? The crisis served as a for innovation in the industry. So the noun begins with the letter C, refers to it could be a person or thing that precipitates an event. So in this case, we're talking about a thing, which is the crisis, but it served as a for innovation in the industry. I think this one's a little more challenging, not only because of the example sentence, but because the definition may not give it away as clearly as some of the others. So I'll give you a little bit of a hint. Begins with the letter C, but this is a word that you generally may use or come across if we're talking about science. And a science experiment is taking place, and you need to, I don't want to give it away, but you could also use this word in other contexts, such as this one right here, and you're referring to it really kind of getting things started. It's getting the ball rolling. So the crisis occurred, but then on the other side, that is what started this innovation in the industry. So in that case, we could say that it served as a catalyst. And if you're referring to a catalyst, then you're talking about something that it says it precipitates an event, it comes before it, and it really gets it going. So I told you catalyst is more of a word in science that you're going something that's going to start some type of reaction, maybe a chemical reaction. And to highlight that, this is a little bit of a joke, a play on words. It said, I tried to make a chemistry joke, but I got no reaction. Maybe I needed a catalyst. So it's supposed to be funny, I think, on two different ends. A chemistry joke, there was no reaction, a reaction in chemistry. And then, of course, they needed a catalyst, something to really get the people laughing. It's a bad joke, I'm sorry, but it's another example of how catalyst is used in both ways, as a term for science, but also in this case, just talking about trying to get something going and something being a catalyst. Let's move on to some impressive adjectives, and these words are impressive, at least in my book. So this time, I'm making it a little more challenging. I'm not giving you the first letter of the word. So you kind of just try to put it into context, look at the meaning, see what you can come up with. We set a date for the meeting, but it may change depending on everyone's schedule. So this is a word that I think is a common one, and I think you know it. It means not fully worked out or developed. And in that case, if something is not fully worked out, it's not developed, you could say it is what? And we're talking about a date. This is a collocation, and as soon as I say collocation, words that are frequently used together, you know that I'm going to share with you some other collocations. At least I think I am as part of this. Yes, I do have them on there. So we're talking about, well done, the word tentative. Tentatives. If something is tentative, it's not fully worked out. And typically, this is going to be used as an attributive adjective before a noun. Now, you could say, well, look, it's tentative and just leave it at that. But I think most of the time, you're going to talk about what is the thing that's not fully worked out. So in this case, there was a tentative date that was established, but it may change. Some other collocations, and really, you're often going to use this word when talking about arranging some type of plan or a schedule. So a tentative schedule or a tentative plan, a tentative date, a tentative agreement, or make tentative arrangements. So these are some common phrases that you would use with this adjective. Good one to know, especially because we talk about our plans all the time, things we're going to do or things we would like to do, but maybe it's not fully worked out, and in that case, we might make a tentative plan. All right, how about this one? Climbing the mountain was a challenge, even for experienced hikers. This word may be a little more difficult to guess. At least I think it might be. But the meaning is inspiring fear or respect through being impressively large, powerful, intense, or capable. And all of that can get wrapped into one, and you could use this impressive adjective and say that something or someone is what? And to go ahead and let you know, that is another collocation, I think, with challenge and saying something that is really difficult. You could say it is a challenge. So if we're talking about a word that mixes fear and respect, it's impressive because, well, who knows? Maybe it's large or powerful or intense. In that case, we could say that something or even someone, you could use this word to describe a person as well, formidable. Formidable. Climbing the mountain was a formidable challenge, even for experienced hikers. I will say that you see words like, fear and respect, like opposites. Fear, you think of maybe something being a little more negative. Respect, of course, is positive. I do think this word is a bit more neutral, that it's not necessarily mean that you are positive or negative on this thing. You're just trying to refer to the difficulty in saying something is a formidable challenge. To give you some more collocations, but I want to do this through the use of some news headlines. Argentina coach Morocco is a formidable opponent. Talking about the football team, Morocco. Formidable opponent is another collocation with this adjective. Now, The opposite of that, you could say, a strategy consultant, I don't know, Jericho Lugo says AI is your most formidable ally as a new consultant. You could use it that way as well. I think more commonly you're going to hear people talk about a formidable opponent. The next one, New Medieval Books, The Formidable Women Who Shaped Medieval Europe. I told you this is a word that you could use to describe a person, saying that he or she is formidable. And then finally, Comeback Kid, inside Shawn Mendes's formidable return. All right, those are some different uses. Hopefully it gives you a better idea as to how this word is used in context. How about this one? Filling out all the paperwork was a process. There are probably other words that you could use, other adjectives that you could use to complete this sentence, but there's one specific one that I want to highlight, which refers to something that is too long, slow, or dull. It is just tiresome, it is monotonous, and it is what? What? Those are really synonyms. Tiresome, monotonous, and you could use it to describe, well, in this case, paperwork. Nobody likes doing paperwork. Or I think just work in general. Some work, you could say, this work is very what? When you want to say, it's boring, it's not exciting, it takes a long time to do, and you're just doing the same thing again and again and again. And you could describe it as being what? What do you think? So monotonous, I told you, is a synonym, but in this case, well done. I don't know whether the chat wasn't catching up, but good, excellent. I see some correct answers. Tedious is the word that we're looking for. If you want to describe something, some work that you have to do is tedious, it has a negative connotation, you're basically saying it's tiresome, it's monotonous, takes too long to do, and it is just really tedious. This is a great association, filling out paperwork. If you have to fill out paperwork, you go into the doctor's office and they say, hey, fill this out. You're like, oh gosh, okay, let me go through name, address, allergies, what have you. It can seem a bit tedious, all right? That's a good example, a good association with this adjective. Smartphones have become in modern society. This is a word that I know I've talked about previously. Can't remember. Maybe I've talked about it already in a couple of different lessons when discussing advanced adjectives, but it means present, appearing, or found everywhere. And the key word is everywhere. Something is present everywhere. You could say it is what? And I think this is true when it comes to smartphones. I was on the tram this morning and just looking around. Everybody was on their smartphone, except for me, because I was just looking around. So if you want to talk about something that is everywhere, the word, again, common, of course, but the word, I told you it's a little more of an advanced word, is ubiquitous. If something is ubiquitous, it's just, you find it everywhere. So I'll give you another example besides smartphone. McDonald's. McDonald's is everywhere. McDonald's is ubiquitous. So a word that maybe you're not just going to actively use every day in conversation, but you may hear it listening to a news report or a podcast. So again, this is going to help with your listening comprehension because you may come across it from time. You're reading a news article from the New York Times. Yes, they will use an adjective like ubiquitous. They like to use big words, I feel like, in the New York Times. So this is just another little bit of a joke. Notice how you hear the word ubiquitous. It's being used everywhere. All right. So yes, of course, I don't know if that's true, but it's a good little play on words as far as the meaning and its usage of being used everywhere. Now let's switch gears. Let's move to some adverbs. Everybody loves a good adverb. At least I do. So the CEO stated that the company would not cut any jobs this year. So in a way that leaves no doubt. Of course, I could have made I'll go ahead and tell you. All of these, I don't think it's going to be much of a hint, but all of these adverbs are ly adverbs. I was thinking about putting that at the end, but it's like, well, what's the point? Just go ahead and tell you. They're all going to end in ly. So if you're stating something in a way that leaves no doubt, these I think are going to be a little trickier. You could say that you are stating something, or you're saying something, or you're commenting on it. And what adverb? Any guesses as to what it means in a way that leaves no doubt? And I think a lot of times you may hear people use it before the verb, but also afterwards, like you said something, no doubt. Once again, I feel like this is an adverb that you have heard before. You may even use it when you're talking if you want to say that leaves no doubt, and you say something unequivocally. Unequivocally. The CEO stated unequivocally that the company would not cut any jobs this year. So in this case, you're saying that, look, there, no doubt, I just want to emphasize the fact, like what I'm saying. So whenever you really want to add that emphasis, so that basically it's a good word to use when you're like, okay, you need to trust me. All right, this is what's going to happen. I'm telling you the truth. There is no doubt, and you state something unequivocally. So you're saying it very clear. Nobody has doubt. So you might give some directions and say the directions for the assignment unequivocally. So there are many things, but a lot of times it's something you say or state, or some type of direction that you may give to someone else. This is, excuse me, this is one that I also think you might know, and maybe this is a little easier. She talked about her new project, barely taking a breath. So think about that last part. Somebody's barely taking a breath, and they're just going on and on and on and on without interruption, constantly. And you could say this person talked what? This is a common collocation when using it with communication. Somebody's communicating in some way, and there's no interruption. It's constantly, and somebody is doing something, talking, speaking, complaining, and they're doing it how? How? Any guesses? I feel like once again, maybe the chat's, and it's not updating for some reason, but it's okay. You could say, I understand somebody saying repeatedly. That kind of works, but I wouldn't say repeatedly. That does mean like that without interruption. I do think this is a stronger adverb when you want to say that it's way too much. But repeatedly, I think would work in this context. That would work, but that's not the adverb I'm talking about. Continuously is another one that would also work. I think those words are a little more commonly used. I want to give you, again, something a little more advanced. And yes, excellent. I see a couple of good answers. We're talking about the word incessantly. Incessantly, we're adding a little more emphasis to repeatedly, continuously. If you say somebody's talking incessantly about her new project, barely taking a breath. So I said you might use this word incessantly when talking about the way somebody might communicate. So you may say somebody is talking incessantly about something or complaining incessantly. So in a way that really, I feel like this also tells me that maybe it bothers the person or it bothers you if you say somebody is complaining incessantly or worrying incessantly. That's another common collocation. Dogs bark, but of course that's the way they communicate. And you might say, look, this dog was barking incessantly and just didn't stop. Or to chatter incessantly. So all of those verbs are different verbs when talking about communication, but you could use it with the adverb incessantly when you want to say there's just no break and it's just on and on and on, and somebody is talking incessantly. He arrived late to the meeting, drawing everyone's attention. So the meaning of this adverb is in a clearly visible way. So it's like this person arrived Of course, everybody noticed, maybe they stopped what they're doing, and it was very obvious that this person entered the meeting late, and we could say that he arrived how? How is he arriving, which means in a clear and visible way. This is one that I do think may be a little more challenging, at least probably to come up with based on the example that I'm giving you. But it is another one that I think probably you've heard and maybe you even use. Abruptly and visibly, those aren't the word. That's not the word that I'm looking for. Love those hearts. Thank you very much, whoever's sending those out. He arrived, what? And it, again, is just obvious, clearly visible. So in this case, I'm talking about conspicuously. He arrived conspicuously late to the meeting, drawing everyone's attention. So if something is done conspicuously, it just means in a clearly visible way. Now, I think a good synonym for conspicuously is noticeably. I think that's a good synonym for this. So some other collocations, some other phrases, if we're talking about this adverb, you might say, like in our example, somebody was conspicuously late or conspicuously absent, or say something is conspicuously lacking something. You might say something is conspicuously high or low. Maybe a place is conspicuously clean. And then you might say someone is conspicuously good or bad at doing something. All right? And you're just trying to emphasize, because I really think whenever you're using an adverb, you're really just trying to add emphasis, give a little more information, which is really what they do. So conspicuously, good one to know. All right. Hope if it's new, let me know. You can hit that like button. That tells me that you're learning new words, building your vocabulary. And remember, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We just do this slowly over time. Some of these words I feel like I've talked about before, and it's always good to get a little review. The speaker explained the challenges facing the education system in a way that gives a strong, clear message. Once again, I think this is a word you know, and maybe the meaning doesn't completely give it away, but it really does have a positive connotation. You're talking about somebody who is speaking in a very effective way, persuasive way. You're basically giving someone a compliment if you say that they spoke about this thing. So we're not talking about, no, not explicitly or loudly. What do you think? Any other guesses? Explicitly, again, it does mean very precise and like this is what happened. And that's why I said maybe it's not going to completely give it away. I wanted to add that in there as far as like giving someone, like you really enjoyed listening to this person. That the words that they used, the delivery, their tone, everything about the way they spoke was what? And hopefully that maybe makes it a little easier to follow. So we're talking about again, this is the dictionary definition giving a strong, clear message. But in this case, the word that, the adverb that I was trying to point at is eloquently. So somebody speaks eloquently, or and a lot of times I think this also is another adverb that you would use when talking about communication. The speaker eloquently explained the challenges facing the education system. But I would also add, if you're going to use eloquently, it does also imply that you just really enjoyed the way this person was communicating. And it could be because of the words they used, the delivery, and all of that. You could say, again, using it as an adjective and say somebody is an eloquent speaker. So it really does have a positive connotation. These are all of the words that we looked at. There were 12 in total, some verbs and nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. And I know that I talk incessantly about building your vocabulary. I think it is true. It's really good to learn some of the slight nuances between some of these words, because a lot of them, I think I saw, like, some other words could complete the sentence perfectly fine. And it's always good to understand, well, is there a difference between this word? Is it going to add a little emphasis? And I think those nuances are great. And I hope that this serves as a catalyst to continue building your vocabulary. Maybe it'll even compel you to watch another video lesson right now. All right, just trying to promote myself, give you a little bit of review with some of these words. But once again, if you want to get these notes so you can remember them, go ahead, click on that link, join my email community. And yeah, if you're already a part of it, just check your inbox. So I hope that you learned something new. That is the goal with all of these lessons. If you enjoyed it, you can let me know by hitting that like button. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time for the next lesson. I'm surprised I didn't cough or anything, or not that much through this. Anyway, thanks a lot. I will see you soon.